When you have to accept that a heritage structure or a landscape is going to change, and that change is probably inevitable because of climate change, how do you engage people with that in a positive way? And so the heritage sector has existing tools. It has managed decline, which is a relatively passive, sort of low-key way of saying we're probably not going to be able to invest in this thing anymore. And it has adaptive reuse, which is established now after decades of practice, which means it's okay to take a building and change its use entirely if it means you save the fabric. And so we just decided we needed another option. And so we came up with the idea of adaptive release, which is really about recognizing that when you have to lose something, when you have to accept that kind of change, you can do it in a way which is very sort of attentive and intentional and work with processes of transformation. So that might be ruination or it might be coastal erosion. But it's an approach that insists that you don't just walk away and say, oh, now we're letting it go, but that you stick around and you engage communities with understanding how places are changing. You might do rescue archaeology projects with communities to help them engage with that and interpret that. And really critically, instead of just saying, oh, this is, in regard to a designated heritage structure, the common understanding would be, well, if you start to let it disintegrate, then you're affecting its significance, and that's problematic. But what we've tried to do is embed in adaptive release the understanding that actually significance can change and that these processes may generate new significance and that might be natural significance, ecological significance, but it also might be new ways of engaging culturally, aesthetically. A lot of people really love ruins, so there's something about that, that insistence that actually it's not just about the value disappearing, it's about it changing as well. In the work that I do, I sort of waver between thinking, yes, I want to develop new tools to help people cope with this, and thinking, actually, all I'm doing is, creating a way for people to feel okay about something that's not okay, and that we shouldn't actually have found ourselves in this position. But I think one thing I've realized is that sort of ingrained understanding of conservation as being about, trying to preserve it's really challenging to try to wrap people's head around radical change. Conservation professionals will say that what they do is about the careful management of change, and that is true, but they're not usually talking about transformative change. They're not talking about things gradually disappearing necessarily, And I think it's that sense of change as something which is really creates rupture, and where there's a lot of ambiguity about the timeline that is going to play out on, and we just have very few tools for actually thinking about that phase of transformation as it unfolds. And so trying to give the sector some tools to do that, I think, is really important. While it's challenging for the culture and heritage to think about these issues and to try and embrace this kind of change and work with it, there are amazing opportunities there, because these are people who have an understanding of very deep histories of change. So whether it's sort of landscape evolution over time or histories of human interactions with the environment, the people who work in this area have a really sophisticated and very, I think, a very deep understanding of how we arrived where we are now, and so letting those stories emerge when you start to think about landscape change and sort of heritage loss, I think, is really important.